Raise some
Cain. You gotta raise some Cain. In the heartland where the faith runs strong, we've seen the shadows growing long. Watch those around us be deceived. Yeah, the fight is at our doors, no matter who we believe. Corruption, lawless day and night, we'll speak the truth into the light. We'll bring the battle, heed the call, watch the whole thing fall. We gotta raise some Cain, show the lies, break some chains and make things right. Feel the power, be the change, the time is now. We gotta raise some Cain.
Welcome to the Raising Cain Show Mountain Edition. Tonight, we welcome Alexander Gaaserud as he announces his candidacy for the U.S. Senate in 2026. A native of Elkins, West Virginia, and resident of Parkersburg, Alex is eager to bring his vision for West Virginia to the national stage. Having previously run in the 2024 Republican primary, one of my opponents, in fact, for the U.S. House of Representatives, he is now expanding his outreach statewide. Alex's platform focuses on issues such as border security, fiscal responsibility, and economic growth. He aims to represent the values and concerns of West Virginians in Washington, D.C. Tonight, we'll discuss his background, policy priorities, and what he hopes to achieve if elected to the U.S. Senate. We look forward to a thoughtful conversation, and we welcome all candidates to share their vision for the future of West Virginia in future episodes. Alex, thanks for joining the show tonight.
Nate, it's an honor to be here. It's great to reconnect with you, and seeing your face brings back a lot of memories from that second congressional race. And then I'm just so happy. Yeah. I'm just so happy a lot of the things that you and I and others in that race were arguing for, we're seeing come to pass here very quickly in this new administration.
Without a doubt. Yeah. Alex, after, careful consideration and discussions with your family, you've decided to launch your campaign for U.S. Senate. So what motivated you to take this step, and what do you hope to accomplish for West Virginia? Let's start with that. I think that's kind of like the main, point of all this. So.
Right. Yeah, I want to accomplish generational change. We're the sickest, oldest, poorest state in the country. Mm-hmm. When you look at the outcomes we have in West Virginia, whether it's 51st in education when they're counting the District of Columbia, or it's the second lowest workforce participation rate in the nation, we lead the nation in adult and childhood obesity. We lead the nation in drug overdose deaths per capita. It's not even close. And I feel, as I travel around the state, whether I'm in Martinsburg or Matewan or I'm, anywhere else in the state, I feel that our state and 55 counties have been left for dead. I don't believe that our current federal leadership has made service a priority. So I want to get back to going into communities and connecting with people, showing up to places and saying, hey, how can I help you? What can I do to help you? How can I serve you? I feel like we've gotten away from virtue in politics. And I think a good example of that would be people that look at the results of a state like West Virginia, such as Senator Capito, and think that she's still the answer to lead people here and to lead West Virginians. So that's really what I want to bring. I want to bring a generational change, but I'm also an intellectual conservative as well as a MAGA populist. And marrying those two together, I think, will be critical for the next 4 years and even in a post-Donald Trump world.
Yeah, I think that, the thing that I saw when we were, out campaigning, oftentimes, at the same events, was that you had a very consistent message, and that message still, it still resonates because we got a lot of problems. And, how do you, one of the questions that I wanted to find out from you is, how do you balance pointing out all of the negatives, because we do have a lot of them, in our state, and things that need to change, with the positives, that what I see in West Virginia is we've got great, massive potential that is just untapped. What are some of the things that you think could change, and with the right leadership, and where would be, I guess, your first focus to try to tackle?
Well, obviously, we have to change the image of West Virginia. West Virginia is a sick old poor state, and we need to change the image almost immediately. And to do that, we have to get a generational change and getting back to service. Economics is obviously very important, in economic opportunity. Right now, our education system has failed in West Virginia. I mean, it's not even close when you're comparing it to the rest of the country. And we're also a state that's defined by flight. So if you're a young person right now in high school, some of them are right now counting down the days until June when they escape the state forever. And I've seen it with my generation, whether you want to classify a generation as 20 years or 30 years, we've seen really two generations, if you want to classify it as 20 years, leave the state. And they leave the state because they don't have the opportunities. They're in a busted infrastructure. We're last in infrastructure. They don't see opportunities. So one, I want to change the image of the state. And the people that do stay here and live here and grow up here, inspire them to work, live, play, start a business in West Virginia. And I think that, we've been a state that has, been a big federal taker state for a long time. And we just need to reimagine what we can be as a people. I think that's one of the most important parts of bringing a new leadership to West Virginia. It'd be great to send the youngest United States senator in the country from the state with the state's issues. So I definitely would want to focus on education, definitely want to focus on the economic opportunity, going into communities and high schools and telling people where mom's dead and dad's in jail and they're living with their grandparents due to the opioid crisis, that doesn't have to be a cyclical thing, that you can break this generational poverty, you can break the generational sexual and drug abuse that we have in this state. And I feel that our leaders right now aren't even able to articulate that or show up anywhere. So anywhere I go, I was in Mingo County Monday. I was in the Potomac Highlands and Eastern Panhandle the Monday before that. I've been crisscrossing the state all over. And I pretty much hear the same thing. We feel like we've been left for dead. And when you look at these communities and you get on the ground, it's hard to argue that they haven't.
Yeah, yeah. I think Mingo County is one of the poorer counties in our state. And, and there's a lot of people that are suffering, especially in that southern part of the state, but it's not just there, it's everywhere. One of the things that you mentioned, and I want to ask you if you can, kind of dig into it. You've been outspoken about the need for new leadership in the Senate. What do you believe are the key issues facing West Virginia that require a fresh look at or fresh representation? And feel free to attack your opponent right here. So,
which one, right? No, I think that, as we talked about in the campaign, the regular way of doing business in Washington, and it's so refreshing to see Donald Trump come in, and in a short 2 weeks, he's basically changed the way that they're doing business in Washington, D.C. writ large. And we can get into the multitude of things that he's done in the last 2 weeks to change DC. And I think he's changing the culture as well. He's letting people know that, hey, this isn't the way that we're going to continue to do business. And if you're used to it or you're confused by it, that's too bad. And one of the campaign points that I always brought up in our race was the omnibus packages, the wasteful, out of control, reckless spending. And Senator Capito has been complicit in that. She's been complicit in fostering running the government through omnibuses and continuing resolutions, which isn't the way the government should be funded. And I would point out during our campaign some of the ridiculous expenditures that you would see passed in these wasteful bills, these wasteful omnibus packages. And now the American people, with Trump returning to power in the White House, are actually seeing it for themselves. When you're thinking about the one that sticks out is obviously the condoms being sent to Gaza, which are actually being used as chemical weapons as they're flying chemicals into the condoms over into the Israeli airspace and Israeli border. So, I could sit here for the next 50 minutes and go through all of the wasteful spending that we've seen in Washington, D.C. And for the first time, it's just not some hardly known politician running his first race that's going around trying to convince people of this. Now we see a national spotlight on these issues. So I would want to return to 12 single subjects appropriation bills. I would want to return to fiscal responsibility. I think if the founders saw how much we're taxed as a people, whether you're talking local taxes, state taxes, or of course, more important to what I'm trying to do, federal taxes, they probably say you guys need to have a revolution or come up with a new social contract at this point. So I want Americans to keep more of their tax dollars. I want Americans to no longer have their tax dollars wasted all over the place like we've seen. And, I went around for a year and a half talking about that. Trump's been in office for 2 weeks. And I think a lot of America has woken up to some of these things now.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things I remember you were very strong on was border security. Obviously, we're seeing a totally different government response to illegal aliens. We just saw some recent rounding up of over 50 illegals that were in our prison system here in West Virginia, which I am very glad to see. I think Tom Homan's the right guy, for this. What would you do to support that effort to strengthen our national security, particularly our border security, and not just at the southern border, but also the northern border as well, because we've got major problems there with terrorists, that have been caught trying to come across the border?
Yeah, I just want to say, that was my most important issue in the campaign. I had made a point that our sovereignty is being illegitimized, our border country is being invaded, and the people that are coming across are criminals, murderers, rapists, and the proof was in what we saw. They came across this border, and for 4 years they were allowed to kill our police officers, rape our women, and your tax dollars put them in hotel rooms. And that's why I came up during the campaign. And I was one of the first politicians in the country to come up with this comprehensive, border policy, which was send the United States military to the border and no longer allow people just to come across this border without any ramifications. The second portion of that was to form a mass deportation task force. Yep. And a lot of people were trying to tell me at the time, whether it was Hoppy Kercheval or other people in the media, that this isn't logistically possible. Well, we see last 2 weeks.
Yep, you are proving them wrong, because
right.
Exactly what you said needed to happen is exactly what Trump is doing. So
yeah. And then the third portion of that policy,
good on you for that.
Yes, was asylum. And we need to change asylum in U.S. law. And that's something that'll be a bigger lift, I think, a little bit down the road. But I'm very grateful that this isn't an issue that I'm able to have to talk about anymore. I mean, now the border it's a constant security issue. You're constantly having to secure the border. And in another 30 years from today, we're still going to have proper policies in place to secure the border. But I'm so grateful that a responsible government, a real leader, whether it's Homan or Donald Trump, has stepped in here and has given the American people clarity on this. And to see this issue somewhat taken off the table is very, very good at this point.
Yeah. When you talk to people and you're out there campaigning, and obviously when you were talking to people in the 2nd District, when you were running for the House, I'm sure for many of those people, the issues have not changed. But what are the issues that you are seeing people talking about today since Trump coming into power? Obviously, some things have changed. Like we said, immigration. I think people are happy with what Trump's doing, except for the illegals, But I think most Americans are. Yeah, exactly. Maybe the Democrats, because there goes their voters. But what are the issues that you see people talking about now that Trump's in, the things that they're still concerned about, things that they want to see, change, to help them or to benefit them?
I think the main issue right now in West Virginia that we're looking for is energy. We're looking for a 21st century renaissance of energy in this state and in this country. And I think West Virginia has a real opportunity here to become a leader for fossil energy going into the future. With our abundance of God-given resources, whether it's coal or natural gas, we have got to take full advantage of that. I would love to see, and this is one of the things that I will go to Washington, D.C. and fight on, which is bring the first coal-fired power plant online, in the first new coal-fired power plant online in the country, and bring it right here to West Virginia. So that's one of my biggest, I would say, new policy proposals that I am putting forth. I want to see us unleash the liquid gold underneath our feet as West Virginians. We should have the lowest energy prices in the country. We have the highest. what we're doing to young families and seniors and what they did to young families and seniors really over the last 30 years. People in ivory towers all across this country, from Bill Clinton to George W. Bush to obviously the neo-Marxist administrations that we saw with Obama and recently with Biden, is they were selling us this climate myth and packaging it as we have to be responsible and step up and pay more and suffer and have this sort of, take this sort of pain. And it just doesn't have to be this way. Another portion is a lot of people in my state, they're not going to be architects. They're not going to be lawyers. They're not going to be doctors. They have energy in their blood. They have coal in their blood. They have natural gas, especially over the last 20 years now. You're starting to see generational wealth created in the natural gas community in West Virginia. And we need to give West Virginia workers the opportunity to go make those big bucks in the energy sector, because they do spend a lot of time away from family and what have you. But we need to unleash American energy so West Virginians' standard of living can rise. They can have nice homes. They can have paid off vehicles. They can have low energy bills, and they can spend. We're not going to. There's no reason that we should be the poorest state in the country. And I think that energy is crucial here with this opportunity we have to rewrite our history as an energy producing state, but also an energy producing country.
I'm glad that you've mentioned coal-fired power plants, and the reason I say is because a lot of people, they only look at like natural gas and oil as or they may even look at nuclear. I think we need it all, but what's unique about coal, I learned when I was obviously running, it's one of those resources you can just dump on the ground right next to the power plant. It doesn't expire. It doesn't escape from gas or anything like that. It literally just sits there and it can be used, and we're producing so much of it right now, but we're sending it to China. We're sending it to, Brazil and India and all around the world, but we're not using it here, and we should be. I don't know if you caught the conversation that I had with Jim Estep, who's I think he's the president or CEO of the High Technology Park in Fairmont. I had him on, I think, last Tuesday. If you haven't seen that interview, you should definitely go back and watch it, because we get into talking about the future of technology. And I see West Virginia really has an opportunity that, that it could develop and diversify its economy with very high-paid, high-tech jobs, while at the same time supporting the energy industry and creating jobs there as well. But it's going to take, I think, a younger generation of leadership.
Yes.
It's going to take people like you that can see beyond just, what we've been doing, primarily agriculture and the oil and gas industry and, the coal industry. Those are great, and they're industries that can support things, but we need to be building power plants here in West Virginia that are not on the grid, because the problem with the grid is that once we've connected it to the grid, now the federal government has a say in it. But I think we could absolutely push for meaningful change in Congress to help preserve the state's rights to be able to build, coal-fired power plants or gas-fired power plants. The Biden administration was very destructive to that end. They interfered with anytime we wanted a pipeline, with another state, we had to get it approved. Anytime that we wanted to build a power plant, hook it up to the grid, we had to get it approved. All of that kind of regulatory, bureaucracy, I think, is a part of the problem. What would you do to try to tackle that, from the federal perspective, to make it easier for us here?
Yeah, well, I'll be honest. They need to get this tackled in the next 2 years. Even if I win this race, which I'm fairly confident I'm going to win this race because of what type of shape she's in politically in the state and just where the state is and their yearning for change. But Lee Zeldin is going to have to gut the EPA, and we are going to have to roll back a lot of these regulations. And I know the EPA has a mission that they have to uphold due to law, but we're going to need to change the laws. We're going to need to reduce the EPA, and we're going to need to stop the barrier of entry and the regulations for producing energy. Right now, because of 30 years of turning our energy independence off, there's a lot of laws on the books that will have to be changed. And the one thing I am concerned about is I haven't gotten a good message from Zeldin and the EPA or even the administration yet so far about how exactly we're going to do that. And I know it's a complicated matter. It's not just come in here and change it all of a sudden. But we need to see them work extremely hard the next 2 years to, free up our country to be able to produce energy. Right now, the way laws are written, we're not even able to really produce a lot of this energy that we have. So they're going to have to tackle that and tackle it very soon. But obviously, when I get there in 2027 in the United States Senate, I'm going to continue to expand on the work of the Trump administration with 2 years to go in office, and try to help them with visionary leadership and be there for them to fight on that issue. But they have to get working on repealing a lot of these environmental laws that have been passed over the last 3 decades in this country right now.
Yeah, yeah. Now, you've emphasized national security concerns, particularly regarding China, Iran, Russia, and North Korea. What policies would you advocate for to ensure that the United States remains strong on the global stage?
Again, I think you're seeing some of it right now. The tariffs, just the threat of tariffs, are yielding very different results. A lot of people from other countries have always wondered why the United States didn't exert its influence in a way that is more beneficial to the people that live here, as opposed to taking money from people that live here and sending it everywhere else. I think that the tariffs are really going to be paramount to getting the world to recalibrate in a fair way with the United States. No longer are we going to let the American taxpayer be ripped off and taken advantage of. And that's pretty clear coming from the administration right now. So I like the China tariffs that he has put in place. There's just a threat of tariffs are working. But stand up to these countries. One of the reasons I want to go to the United States Senate, I'm not a one-horse pony. I'm not a victim. I want to go to the United States Senate specifically to fight and stand up against these countries. Iran, that was a big issue for me during the campaign. We've seen how out of control they've been allowed to get recently. North Korea, Russia, China. We need to send another person like Josh Hawley to the United States Senate that has the ability to stand up and articulate to these countries that we're not going to be pushed around anymore. One of the things that happened the last 4 years with Biden is these evil nations, in a lot of cases, dictated terms to us. We need to be dictating terms to them. And I think that I'm somebody that can be on the ground at that level fighting for the next 10, 15 years. The United States Senate is a place where foreign policy reigns. And there's a lot of ability to deal with foreign policy in the United States Senate that you don't necessarily get in the United States House. And I think that showing up as a young leader, an aggressive leader, and putting these countries on notice, saying, hey, listen, a new generation of Americans, they don't think like the last 40 years, last 50 years of politicians that you've been used to dealing with. And that's one of the measures. But just being more mindful about what the shape of these countries are, and also communicating with these countries, trying to get these countries to convince them to do things differently. And I think that you saw with the declaration that President Trump signed today, basically putting Iran on notice. He is right in some respects. I think we have to push back on Iran very hard. I think he was being a little kind and conciliatory to them today, but we don't want to be like this. We don't want to have to do this, but we have to at this point, and we will if need be.
I've got some questions that are popping up in the comments. I want to bring one of them up because, a one comment, and then a couple of questions. So I'll bring up this one first here. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, that's one of the, I think, problems we have right now. The Moore dynasty has been in place in this state since the 1950s. I mean, we're approaching, almost, we're soon going to be 80 years in to a Moore dynasty. And I think that one of the problems we have is our politicians don't have a lot of virtue, and they can't be expected to just step aside on their own. And the Moores, specifically Shelley, she has never been challenged in West Virginia politics since the year 2000. She's been allowed to run through this state unmolested for so long, politically speaking, that it almost makes one wonder. And some people say to me, why would you do this? Why would you sign up to take on the Moore dynasty, whether it was Riley in the 2nd district race previously, or now it's Shelley, which was kind of the grand plan in this, is because I can't allow these people to just be crowned anymore in West Virginia politics. And to think that Shelley Moore Capito tried to install her son into the governor's mansion while her nephew was projected to win the race by 80 points and allowed 4 people with no name identification, no public office track record, and no money to get more votes collectively than him, shows you how unpopular the Moore dynasty is. The fact that Patrick Morrisey, not the most aesthetically pleasing candidate from a different state, from New Jersey, was able to beat Moore Capito. And I'll take Patrick Morrisey from New Jersey over Moore Capito from South Hills, Charleston, any day of the week. So the Moores are, with the exception of Riley, I think at this point, are definitely unpopular. And Shelley, we have a perfect conditions here to get rid of her. We can term limit her as people voting, right?
Yeah.
We're not term limits in time for the election, but the Moore dynasty, to think that 3 people from the same family are the answers for West Virginians is crazy to me. It's just the statistical chances of that are 0.
I'm hoping that Riley will surprise us and turn out to be very different than the other side of his family. But the jury's still out. So I've reached out to his office recently asking for some help on an issue. That was a humbling experience to go ask my former opponent, hey man, I need some help as my representative now. But to his credit, they did reach back to me and they're working on it. So
I think Riley's trending in the right direction from a service and a conservative standpoint. I think a lot of his unpopularity and the fact that 4 people got more votes than him collectively, which is almost, it's an amazing feat to think about, that we collectively got more votes than somebody that had a national track record in the treasurer's office, has a political family dynasty name, and was projected to win the race by 80 points. And I think that Capito
is much more vulnerable, I think. And she's got a lot of money. She's got a lot of power. But the fact is that I think the people of West Virginia, all they have to do is look at her voting track record, and her voting track record was horrendous. I mean, in the last 4 years, she voted, she had a more leftist track record than Joe Manchin. So, that says a lot right there.
Well, and I'll be honest, Nate, really and truly, Joe Manchin, now he got a little bit of a bump in job approval because he decided not to seek re-election because he was afraid to go out of West Virginia politics a loser. But his job approval was actually higher than Shelley's. Rex Repass did a poll which had her in the high 30s, low 40s. Now she came up to the mid 40s, but she's more unpopular in our state today than Joe Manchin is.
Well, I'll tell you, for me personally, my experience was that every time I reached out to Joe Manchin's office, I got a response every time. I didn't always get the answer I wanted, but I at least was shown the dignity of getting a response. I reached out to Shelley Moore Capito's office at least on 2 occasions on national security matters where I had direct evidence of a security threat to our nation. I got no response. I think that's pretty damning. So I know that you would not be like that. And that's one of the things that, I'm hopeful in seeing people like you, running in this race against her. Let me ask you, because I think this is an issue that is important. Obviously, you've brought it up a lot. You brought it up during your campaign, for the House, and I know it's still a big issue. And you brought it up earlier in our discussion tonight, which is about West Virginia young people leaving. How do we get young people to stay? What is your strategy in how? And I realize, look, we're talking about a federal race here, not for state office, and most of what the problem has to do with our state legislature.
Yes.
And our state legislature and our governor need to come up with solutions. But what can you do from a federal perspective in the Senate to maybe help with that issue? Because I know that's a big part of the problem of us losing population, and also it depresses our economy when our talent leaves this state.
Yeah, well, I think again, the first portion of this is just going to be a new inspirational generational sort of leadership where we're able, a young US senator is able to go into schools and tell people, hey guys, I left here once too, but I came back to work and raise a family and live and to serve my state. And you are able to do that as well. And then this is what we're doing to help you. One of the things I would like to do, and I think it's going to take a federal office to do it because there is a lack of imagination sometimes in Charleston. And the historical track record of the state in Charleston isn't great, but we have to retrofit our schools. We have got to change the way we are educating our people that are born and raised here in the 21st century. We have to get more vocational based. We have to get trade school. We have to get people that know how to do some construction, know how to do heavy machinery operation, know computers and computer coding and retrofit our high schools to when we do kick somebody out at 18 years old, they have an idea of the skill or something that they can do that makes them more employable or gives them more direction. And then another component of that is financial literacy courses. We need to get people financially literate in high school. So when they do, go get a job at the local construction company or down there at the computer programming office or welding or whatever it might be, that they can take over somebody's business that's ready to retire, or they're able to go start their own business at 25 or 30 or 35 and continue on. So I'm very outcome based on that. And I think it'll take a lot of federal pressure and federal dollars to actually make that change in coordination with a like-minded governor and a legislature that knows what's up. So that I think is really important. So fixing education, but also having somebody that can go in and relate with these people better. To think that Senator Capito at 71 years old
It's not going to relate to anybody at that age.
These folks today, she can't. When I go into a school, when I talk to somebody that's lost mom and dad's in jail and they've been affected by the opioid crisis, it's not because I've had the similar situation, but I grew up with a generation of West Virginians that have gone through similar situations. I went to school with people that were born and raised here, went to college, and after they got their degree, they left the state. I've met so many fantastic people that choose West Virginia to be their place to be educated and to continue on with schooling. And as soon as they graduate, they're gone. They're never to. I was talking to somebody the other night. I haven't been back since I graduated, right? So we have to do a lot more to attract people here. And some of it is image, some of it is actual policy implementation, but changing the way that we're doing business in West Virginia, the way that we think about the state. And I think a fresh, young perspective is important. I called a guy today, a Capito donor, and he basically tells me he wants Shelley. Can't tell me one thing Shelley's done good, right? Can't get specific about anything, but wants Shelley because he's old and Shelley's old. It's like, we can't continue with this. We're not going to have much of a state left by 2050 if we just keep this no growth mindset, this, oh, I know her, or she shook my hand one time. Like I told him, these people have left this state for dead. And if you talk to the non-political business class in this state, the non-connected class, or let's just say you do talk to them, what you find out when you talk to them is they are afraid that they're going to lose something if Senator Capito isn't in there. They can't tell me that Senator Capito has helped their community and they've got these schools going and these kids initiatives and these job opportunities. They don't even tell me, hey, she's got a great voting record. She's done a great job in Washington, D.C., being a conservative and fighting for the MAGA agenda. They tell me that, well, she helped them directly with their business. And that to them is good enough to keep the power structure in place. And I think in a closed primary, the business political connected class is going to be outnumbered this time.
Yeah, I think you might be right on that because a lot of it's that old saying, the sins of the past are going to come home to roost. And all of the votes that she did and all of the things that she supported, that really were opposed to Donald Trump's vision, of making America great again. I think those things are all going to come to the forefront.
Yeah, real quick, Nate, the federal
Sure.
That federal funding freeze. I get on Dave Allen Wednesday and I say everybody needs to calm down, relax, trust the process. There's some constitutional questions that the courts are going to hash out. This is why we elected Donald Trump. The beginning of the week, I'm confused. I'm not sure this is possible. And now all of a sudden, come Thursday, and then I saw again on Inside West Virginia Politics this weekend, she's repeating what I'm saying verbatim. Everybody
Yeah.
needs to calm down. It's like they can't come up with an original thought, and their instincts are so poor that they know they're in trouble, and they're like, well, let's just copy exactly what he's saying.
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead.
So I got another question here, or another comment. I want to get your thoughts on it, because this is a very specific one. I think that the U.S. Congress is going to have to address. So by the same hairy leg there.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're already seeing the NGOs. We're already seeing their funding start to go away. And that's one of the great pieces of news that's come out early this week, is how corrupt these NGOs are with the way that they're using federal tax dollars, taxpayer money here in America to, push their own initiatives and pet projects. I've never been a big NGO fan. I remember when I learned the term in political science, I was, kind of at first like, well, what exactly do these people do? And after you get into it a little bit, Amnesty International is kind of, one of the ways, Sierra Club, but there's all kinds of them now that have cropped up over the last 2 decades. And we absolutely need to defund a lot of these NGOs and no longer give them free rein to just use taxpayer dollars, American taxpayer dollars, any way they want. So
it's interesting. Of course, my background and my story as a federal whistleblower, and on the Clinton Foundation, Hillary Clinton, and all the money laundering that was going on. Come to find out, when they start digging into USAID, our tax dollars were going to USAID, and they were funding the Clinton Foundation.
Exactly.
So, I mean, this is a bunch of criminals, that have been working there.
Right. It's a globalist agenda that they've been able to successfully implement with Marxist underpinnings. So when you can let the neo-Marxists gain control, that's what you get.
Well, and obviously the most unpopular Republican senator right now, I would say, is McConnell, clearly. And Harry, points out that guess who's always standing next to him in a photo shoot after the hearings. That says it all. I think, Harry, you got a lot of great ones. I'm going to keep just popping yours up.
Yeah.
There. So, you got some great lines there.
Great job.
He also asks, should West Virginia have its own power grid? And again, while some of that I think is the state legislature and the governor, it also speaks, though, to the fact that the current regulation as it stands, which is controlled by the Congress, they could change this, is that they have way too much power to tell West Virginia what they can and cannot do in terms of what kinds of power plants or how many power plants. We're going to need so much power in the future with AI, and I can tell you that's my expertise is cybersecurity and IT infrastructure. We're going to need massive amounts of power for our country to basically move ahead and just to keep up with our adversaries around the world. We need we're going to need AI. We need data centers. We need electronic data mining, all of that. And that's going to require a lot of power. And we have a lot of those natural resources right here in West Virginia. And so what I see, and I think you'd agree with me on this, that we have the potential as a state, with a little bit of help from the federal government, because one of the things we are badly lacking in is infrastructure. We may need some state federal partnerships to bring some of those dollars here so that infrastructure can get put in place to support the buildup of those power plants. But we should be building those power plants right here in West Virginia, because we have the infrastructure for, or we have the resources for it. We just need the infrastructure there.
Oh, totally. Definitely. I mean, we have got, again, the government is doing so much now that they've gone way beyond what the original intent of the founding of this country is. They are involved in so many things that they should not be involved in. And I think that, there are issues sometimes in Texas with their power grid, but there are only issues in Texas with their power grid because we've shut off our energy independence and our energy exploration over the last 30 years in this country. So I would love to see a state like West Virginia be able to become their own, insulated power option, where they're able to power West Virginia kind of on a state level where we're not involved with the feds as much.
Yeah. Well, and what I'd like to see is us do that, and then have the ability to sell off excess energy to the states surrounding us or to the national power grid.
Right.
But the only way that we can actually lower the cost of energy here in West Virginia is if we have our own power grid. Now we can do some private things like, build a private power plant for like a technology corridor or something like that. There's some things that we could do like that to entice businesses and technology businesses to come here. But ultimately, we don't want to just create those jobs and just create that infrastructure. We want to help everybody, which means we need to lower electricity costs across the country or across our state first, right? Kind of like make America first again, or make America great again. We need to make West Virginia great again, and I think we have that capability of doing that. So, and I think that solves two problems. Number one, creates high-paying jobs here in West Virginia, in two different industries, in the energy industry and in the technology industry. But it provides an option for West Virginian young people who are graduating school. If they don't, or getting out of high school and are looking to go to college, maybe they don't want to go into agriculture. Maybe they don't want to go into mining. Maybe they don't want to go into the gas or, energy industry or lumber. It gives an option for them to have an alternative or something to go into that they could, provide and support a family with. So,
yeah, if we can unleash American energy, West Virginian energy, our whole standard of living is going to change. And fixing the education system in conjunction with that will allow, I drive through all over the state, whether I'm in Mingo County or I'm in Ohio County, or I'm in the Eastern Panhandle, or I'm in the river counties, or I'm in the interior of the state. Just about everywhere you go through looks like a bomb has gone off and nobody cleaned it up over the last 30, 40 years. And I think that we can totally change West Virginia and make it a top third state, a real top third state, by getting this energy piece in place. And all of a sudden, you're going to see nice buildings go up. All of a sudden, you're going to see white collar jobs show up here. You're going to have a much more diverse economy, but it starts with energy. That's without a doubt.
Yeah. Now, obviously, in the Senate, there are different roles that they play than the House, and two of the most important roles is confirmation, of the president's cabinet, and we're seeing that going on right now, but also the confirmation of federal judges. Talk to us right now, and tell us where you stand on the types of things, the qualities that you look for in these confirmations of these federal judges that obviously Trump or whoever is going to be the president after his 4 years. What are the things that you think that the senators need to be looking at, and where do you see the role of confirmation for cabinet members, and where the Senate should be stepping in and halting things, or should they be giving the president the cabinet that he wants?
Yeah, so I think that, you brought up there are some special powers in the Senate. Ratification of treaties is one. Here's another one.
That's another one, yeah.
Confirmations. And confirmations, I've always looked at this issue as, just because the president, let's say I'm in the opposite party, just because the president, Joe Biden, wants his picks and I'm a Republican in the United States Senate, I'm not going to do what Senator Capito did and blindly vote for people like Alejandro Mayorkas, which allowed an invasion, which has led to a drain financially and also the loss of life. I'm not going to just confirm Merrick Garland because the poor guy didn't get to become a Supreme Court justice, and now he's going to be somebody that's able to lead a weaponized Department of Justice against Donald Trump. I'm not going to just say, okay, Antony Blinken, it's your turn to be Secretary of State, somebody that saw 2 wars break out under his watch. I would be standing totally in defiance to these sorts of people for the exact reason. And Senator Capito didn't. Senator Capito green-lighted these people, confirmed these people, and then we saw the ramifications. And now she's showing up because she knows the political winds are not blowing in her favor, and now she's on board with a lot of people that she isn't really on board with. She's only confirming some of these people because of political expediency, because her instincts are bad. She's used to doing business the old corrupt way in Washington, D.C. that they've been doing for 20, 30, 40 years. And I would be standing firmly in opposition with that. These Trump cabinet picks, just to get into it a little bit, these confirmation picks are outstanding. And the reason that they're outstanding is because they are not entrenched 20 years in bureaucracy. It's so nice to have a soldier leading the Defense Department and not a civilian today.
Yeah.
We've seen what civilians have done leading the Defense Department. It's so nice to see somebody that understands foreign policy in a complex way like Tulsi Gabbard. It's great to see Marco Rubio able to step up into these roles. But a lot of these people that have been put in these positions, whether it's RFK or Kash Patel, they've been put into place specifically because they are not part of the corrupt Washington establishment.
They're not the establishment. Yeah.
And don't think for a second that Senator Capito wanted to vote for any of these people. She only did it because she's officially in cycle. And for the first time in 30 years, 25 years, she has a young Republican running around here with 7,400 votes in the 2nd district and some consolidated support in the 2nd district that's taking her on intellectually and articulating why we need change. And the media in this state won't even ask her about that. So yeah, confirmations are very crucial. That's not because you're the president and you need your team. I'm going to go along with it if they're the wrong people. And if Trump would have nominated some people that weren't right, I would have been, opposing that. But I haven't really found a pick yet that he has come up with that doesn't have more positives than negatives.
He definitely he learned a lot in his first term. That's clear, and that's obvious because the people that he's picking this time around, you're right, they're not the establishment. They're not the people who the so-called experts would have picked. He's picking people that align with his ideology and what his agenda is to do. And I think that that's important because we've got to be able to have people in there that are going to align with the president's agenda. We voted for him. That's what we want. We want Trump's agenda. So I think that Shelley Moore Capito is going to have, I think she's going to have a tough run because she has clearly shown herself to not have the president's back in the past, during the January 6th, hearings and all of that. So I want to see, change within our Congress and see some of the old, members of Congress that are not changing with the times and with the changes that are happening within the Republican Party, which I think are good changes. I'd like to see them go. And so I think that's a good thing. Alex, what is your plan for the next, we've got a ways away here until the next election. Obviously one of the most challenging parts of running a campaign is raising money. That is a big challenge. I'm not asking for you to give away your secrets. Obviously your opponents might be listening to this, or watching this, but how do you plan? Obviously I'm sure you learned some things out of your last campaign. I know if I was running a campaign again, there's certain things that I would do differently as well. Because one of the things I found out was that you could be a candidate that everybody loves, but it doesn't matter if the people who vote don't know who you are. That is ultimately, I think, what matters is people need to know who you are. And unfortunately, because of how widespread our state is, with how spread out it is, it's going to require, doing more than just knocking on doors and going to, the Lincoln dinners and all those things. You're going to have to get a good direct mail campaign going. And that costs money. Unfortunately, that's the most expensive part, I think, of running a campaign. So are you talking to people? Are you working towards that goal right now of getting your fundraising going? And, for people that are watching, we've got over 1,000 people watching right now. If they want to support your campaign, where can they go to do that?
You can go to Gaaserud. It's a tough last name. Gaaserud, 4wv.com, and you can hit donate there. Anything you can afford would be much appreciated. As I started off in the Republican primary for U.S. House in the 2nd district, I was somebody that has a natural ability for this, but learned very quickly how the game is played. And it's very hard for people to give you money when they don't know who you are, right?
That's
And
right.
in the first month, so I left my job full time, and I left my full-time job at the end of the year, and I've been out on the campaign trail for the last 30 plus days, and I'm out here full time because I know I can't win a race working a job and also trying to take out one of the most powerful United States senators in the country right now, and Senator Capito. So I've actually already have more donors and have raised more money in the last 30 days than we did the entire time I was running for Congress. I didn't raise any money,
Great.
and I still spent $25,000 of my own money. So we're out here full time right now, waiting for tax day to get here so we can pay some bills and buy ourselves some more time. But I definitely need the help of anybody out there that can donate. Go to Gaaserud4WV.com and give us a donation to allow us to continue to fight for West Virginia, continue to fight for Americans, and take it to this rhino establishment. But we're already starting to catch traction. One of the problems right now is trying to convince people that I went through today some West Virginia donors, and anybody that donated 2,000 or more, I gave them a call. A lot of them didn't answer. A few of them answered. But it is a game where you're constantly having to raise money. So we got $100 donation yesterday that came in. We're getting more donations that are coming in, but we're off to a great start raising money. I'm a salesman. I've always been a salesman. I was very frustrated during that second congressional race because I really wasn't able to raise money, kind of gave up on raising money, had to go get a different job and that sort of thing. But now I'm out here full time, and we're actually pretty good at raising money so far. We found we're not bad at it. We're a lot better than we were 2 years ago, and I think I'm going to be a lot better at it in 6 months. But some of it is naturally coming to me now in a way, and it is exciting, but I'm about service, not money. I've already said I'm going to donate a portion of my salary back to the taxpayer because I don't need $174,000 to live in West Virginia. But relying on people right now to give us money feels weird, but it's also very productive for us achieving the results that we need to achieve at the end of this race. So yeah, the money factor is vital. It's important. I can be the best candidate, which I thought I was in the second race. No offense, Nate, but I can be the best candidate in the race, and without the direct mail, and I think that with some direct mail, with some properly timed TV and radio advertisement, in addition to my going all over the state, we've been all over the state already in just a month. We would have been more places, but the weather didn't cooperate towards the beginning of the month, so we got a slow start out of the gate. But and God's looking out for us too. Sometimes we'll just have some money roll in, and it's like, oh great, and I'm just buying time. I'm just buying another day, another week, another month, and it's working out so far. I started with basically nothing, and it was like, okay, backs up against the wall, and so far we have survived, much to the displeasure of the establishment out here. So.
Yeah. Well, I'm really glad to see you still in the game. When I was running, I had a lot of really great supporters and everything, and many of them said that if I had not been in the race, that they would have, that you were their second choice. Because one of the things that I think a lot of people appreciated about you was that you were a young, fresh breath of fresh air for a lot of people, and they see that there's a need for for younger and younger people that have a vision, for where West Virginia can go, and I think that's a good thing. I had one other question that came in from somebody, and I think this is a pretty good question actually. What committee would you like to sit in the U.S. Senate?
Well, transportation is a good fit. Energy would be a good fit. The state that I'm from, international affairs. I mean, any of them really. I mean, I'm going to be a backbencher. Basically, I'm making an argument to West Virginia right now that we have to change our leadership for all kinds of reasons. And we're going to have to get rid of the third or fourth most powerful person in the United States Senate. And we're going to need to replace her with generational change to give the representation we need to the state of West Virginia, but also send somebody that's actually a fighter, that's actually MAGA, that's an intellectual conservative, that's a real conservative and can articulate that. So I'd be willing to serve on any committee out there. I think that I could step into any committee and be of use and be of value and bring value, but definitely transportation and as well as energy, I think would be great committees for me. But I'd be willing to serve on any committee at this point. from health to environment, you name it. I'd be willing to go there. But yeah, that's, I love foreign policy too. So.
Well, Alex, we're just about almost out of time, but what I've done is decided to wait to run my commercials until closer to the end. So I'm going to run those commercials now. We'll be back after a short commercial break, and then we'll kind of wrap things up, for the end of the show. So folks, stick with us because we still have a few more questions to ask Alex here before we cut him loose.
It says, I woke up this morning and looked out the door to a country I don't recognize. They put masks on our face to hide our pain, and there's no fire in most people's eyes. And it's still true today. It's still true today that they've tried to destroy the American spirit. And in some instances, they've done a dadgum good job. But in other instances, they have lit an inferno in some people. And we right now are gathering some of those people that are on freaking fire to save this country.
Increasing expenses have caused us all a lot of pressure these days, and it's affecting even the wealthiest of people. Most have lost their sense of security, stability, and even hope for a strong financial future. The game plan of everyone in your cell phone has likely been disrupted or even hardcore stopped, and most are looking for a creative solution to regain financial momentum. Oftentimes, life's best solutions are the simplest. But first, a question. What is something most people think they should own but don't? Crypto, fine art, real estate? Nope. We are talking about real money. The kind kings and queens fought for and large institutions today buy in mass. We're talking about gold and silver, assets that provide confidence in tough financial situations. So the question is, do you own any? If you don't, you're not alone. Most people aren't maximizing the power of precious metals because it's just been too complicated. And even though they see advertisements about gold and silver daily, they don't really know who to trust. That is, until now. The bottom line is that buying gold and silver doesn't have to be complicated or scary. There's a simple, better way to accumulate assets and create financial peace, headache-free. And this very minute, a new community of average people are seeing above average results to the tune of tens of millions in assets over the last few years. This system is tested, it's simple, and it's not an experiment. To date, it's helped more than 80,000 people bring hope back into their lives. It's invitation only, and right now, this new community has accepted a challenge to give away as much free gold this year as possible. Curious? Learn how to get your free gold today. Check out the next step to get the details.
Welcome back to the Raising Cain Show Mountain Edition. I've been talking with the senatorial candidate, Alex Gaaserud, and we've been getting into discussion about his policy, where he stands on the issues. It's been a great discussion. Before we get back to talking with him, I just want to make a comment about the two commercials that you guys just saw. The first one there, Finish This Fight, Diary of a Pissed Off American Soldier. A buddy of mine, Glenn Baker, great man, went through just some incredible things that should not have happened, and just injustices within our system of justice. And in fact, he asked me if I would be in that documentary. And so I tell my story in there as well. And I would encourage all of you to check it out. You can find it at finishthisfight.us/Cain. Our show gets about $4 from that. So, it's not a huge amount, but every little bit helps. And more importantly, the 50% of the proceeds of the sales of that video are going to go to help put a veteran who's lost his ability to walk into an exoskeleton to help him be able to walk again. And it's a really great cause. There's some great people in the documentary, including Alan West, and you've got Craig the Sawman Sawyer, who's talking about the fight against human trafficking, and he's actively involved in that right now. And there's just a whole lot of really great Ivan Rakelin's in it, really great people that are in this video, and I would really encourage you guys to check it out. The other thing is 7K Metals. 7K Metals, there's a lot of great gold and silver companies out there. What I like about them is that they focus on the average person. They're not going after the big accounts and things like that. They really have things set up kind of for the niche market of people like you and me. So like I use them, and I'm on a program where I get, like one silver coin that comes in a month. It doesn't cost me a huge amount of money, but it's what I can afford. And, these are mint condition coins that are, limited edition. They're beautiful, and they hold and grow in value as well. And so you can do that, or you can do bullion if you just want to collect just, plain silver and gold. They have programs, all across the board, and they have some really great education as well. To check that out at 7kmetals.com/raising Cain. All right. So Alex, I always like to ask people, when I have them on, we talk about a lot of different things, and, we covered a lot here today, and I'm sure there'll probably be more questions that will come in later. I'm going to look real quick here and see if there's any other things in here. But one of the things I like to do is I like to ask people, I like to ask my guests, out of all the things that people heard today talked about, what is the most important thing that you want people that are watching right now to take away from this conversation?
New leadership. We need new leadership in the Mountain State. We need to send people to Washington, D.C. that can articulate why they're wanting to go there and understand the principles that they have to get there. That's one of the most important parts. I'm a virtuous politician, if there ever was such a thing. I know that sounds like an oxymoron, but I believe in term limits. I believe that spouses, including members of Congress, shouldn't be trading stocks. I think that we need term limits at this point. We need to come up with a constitutional amendment to make that happen. And I want to serve people. That's one of the things that I think is most important. So, I think the way that they've been doing business in Washington, D.C. for so long is wrong. And we can send somebody there from West Virginia to go fight for West Virginians and the American people in a much more robust 21st century MAGA way.
One thing that I want to comment to those that are watching right now, there may be many of you that are from other states other than West Virginia, but you got to remember that when you're dealing with Congress, whether it's the U.S. or whether it's the U.S. House or the U.S. Senate, in both cases, you may not be able to vote for Alex or for any of the other candidates, but they can vote for you. And so it's very important to support good candidates across the country that are running in these national elections, because ultimately it takes more than just your two senators to get the agenda done that you want. So if you have the ability to support, these candidates that are good candidates, that stand for the things that you stand for and care about the things that you care for, here's an opportunity, to support them. Alex, I want to thank you for coming on the show. And one more time for people who are watching, where can they find out more about you, and where can they donate to your campaign?
Yeah, go to Gaaserud. That's GAAS as in Sam, ERUD as in Delta, the number 4, WV.com. You can hit donate. We are going to catch lightning in a bottle. The conditions in this state are just right. My name ID is high enough. The fundraising, as long as the money comes through, I don't need the most money. I just need enough money to be competitive. And I really, truly believe, as well as a lot of my supporters, that we're going to catch lightning in a bottle, bring generational change to West Virginia, and send a real MAGA senator that's young to fight for all of you in this country.
Alex, I'm going to ask you something, because you brought this up in one of our meetings that we had where we were debating. And I thought this was really great, and I think you should bring it up everywhere you go. Your name, your last name, it's a very difficult name, for people to remember,
Yes.
and it's a name that's easy to poke fun at, but it has a very special meaning. What is the meaning of your last name?
The meaning of my last name?
Yeah.
My last name. Yeah. What?
You brought something up at one of the meetings, and I can't remember if it was. I thought you said that there was a special meaning of your last name that meant something like, I don't know, something like.
No, my first name. Special meaning of my first.
Oh, got it. Alex. Okay, Alexander. Got it.
Yeah, it's kind of, you only get like 2 or 3 minutes to speak, and you're right at the end of the campaign, so you're trying to get as much in as possible. My first name, Alexander, means leader of men.
That's what it was. Yeah. Okay.
So leader of men.
About the last name. Just remember Alexander.
Yeah. I was worried about the last name growing up, politically speaking, because it is a very hard name to say or spell, but it does stick out in a way that is actually helpful politically in some cases.
Well, hey, the oil. Just remember Gaaserud, oil and gas.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, there's
all
some
right
interpretations of that too. That if you talk to the right people, they'll.
That's right. That's right. Hey, I always get the my last name Cain. It depends, right? Some people loved the whole thing about raising Cain, but then there were other like hey, who killed Abel?
Yes, yeah.
So it all depends.
Yeah.
Well, hey, thank you, Alex. For coming on the show. Thank you for spending time with us today. And I always like to end my show in prayer, because I believe that while it's important that we do our part and we get out there and elect the right people, and if we can run, we run for office. I know without any doubt that we're not going to make it as a nation without God's help. Our founders understood that.
100%.
And so I'm going to go ahead and do that and just close it out in prayer. Heavenly Father, Lord, I just thank you for Alex and for the inspiration that you've moved on his heart to run. Thank you for his service. Pray that you would bless his campaign and help him to continue to be the man that you've called him to be. Pray that you would guide and direct his path. And I pray ultimately that we would get good people in office, people that actually care about their communities and their states, and care about the Constitution. Lord, we pray your blessing over Donald Trump and over his cabinet and over those that are currently in office. We pray that they would be better than what they have been, and that they would stand up and be examples. And if they're not going to be the people that we elected them to be, that they would be removed. And so, God, I just pray your blessing over Alex's campaign, and that you would be with him and his family. I know how hard it is on a family, and know how hard it is, I'm sure, for him, his wife and children. So I just pray that you would be with them as well. We ask all this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
So, folks, remember to like and subscribe to the show. And you can catch all of my shows at theraisingcainshow.com. We post everything up there. Sometimes we're a little late in getting things up there, but everything can be found there eventually. Also, you can check out my Substack at MCPOTA. That was my code name as a whistleblower, mcpota.substack.com. And you can also check out the talk radio at America Out Loud Talk Radio. It's americaoutloud.news. And it will be coming on. Actually, it's coming on right now at 7 p.m. on Tuesdays. Unleash the Political News Hour. So after this, you guys can jump on there and hear my political analysis for the week. Remember, stay engaged and stay faithful. Don't ever let any of the troubles that are going on right now stop you, or get you down. But you got to focus on what you can do and put the rest in God's hands. Good night and God bless.
God bless.
Raise some Cain. You gotta raise some Cain. In the heartland where the faith runs strong, we've seen the shadows growing long. Watch those around us be deceived. Yeah, the fight is at our doors, no matter who we believe. Corruption, lawless day and night, we'll speak the truth into the light. We'll bring the battle, heed the call, watch the whole thing fall. We gotta raise some Cain, show the lies, break some chains and make things right. Feel the power, be change. Time is now. We gotta raise some Cain.